I need to talk to you guys about the Onefootball app. See, the Onefootball app is the best football app there is out there, and I use it for a load of different reasons. It's great for transfer rumours, team news and starting 11s, which is actually really useful when I'm making these tactical videos. On top of that, you can now watch game highlights and even live matches, all on the Onefootball app. And believe it or not, it actually gets even better than that, because now you can do it all for free if you use the link in the description down below. So make sure to get in the description, press the link and download the Onefootball app right away. Trust me, you guys will not regret downloading this app. It really is great.
Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel, where today we are talking about a Manchester United win. Pretty crazy stuff, right? And it of course came over Liverpool. So I've got quite a lot I want to get through over the next 10 to 15 minutes, so let's just get straight into it and start off with the lineups. Now, Manchester United set up in a bit more of a 4-2-3-1 formation, whereas in the past few weeks it's been a bit more of a 4-3-3, although that doesn't matter too much. Either way, Malacia, Martinez, Varane and Dalot were in the defence, and those that watched my tactical preview on the game would have known that this is the back four that I wanted due to the tenacity of the players. We then saw Eriksen and McTominay in midfield, and then Sancho, Bruno Fernandes and Alanga, a key player, playing behind Marcus Rashford, who also had a good game. As for Liverpool, their team was not quite what we predicted, with Joe Gomez coming in for Nat Phillips at the back, and then an interesting midfield three with Fabinho dropping to the bench. This meant that Henderson played as the deepest midfielder, James Milner played to his left, and Harvey Elliott played to the right hand side, with this Liverpool team clearly struggling with injuries at the moment. Regardless of those injuries, what this team allowed Liverpool to do was dominate possession of the ball, and I think perhaps this game was a prime example of the fact that controlling the ball doesn't always mean you're controlling the game. This was almost territory versus space and things like that, right? So, like I said, Liverpool were able to have a lot of the ball. Manchester United had about 30% of possession by the end of the game, and it meant that Liverpool did see a lot of the ball in these areas, and a lot of that came with the centre-backs. Now, no one had more touches on the ball than the two centre-backs, and that is what we expected. So what I was talking about in my tactical preview is that there's certain players in this Liverpool team that you can't give time to on the ball because they will progress the ball quite well. And one of those was Virgil van Dijk. And this is where I thought that Rashford played quite an interesting role. So what we know that Dijk likes to do is kind of switch passes out here to Mohamed Salah. But Rashford wasn't really letting him do that, weren't giving him the space to open his body up. And Rashford was getting nice and close to him, stopping him from playing forward into James Milner, but also stopping him from switching the ball out wide. And what this essentially done was force Van Dijk to play the ball across to Joe Gomez. Rashford was almost opening that pass up, inviting Van Dijk to play the ball this way. And Van Dijk obliged, and that is what Liverpool done. Again, that is something I was talking about in the preview, about how Nat Phillips could be seen as a target in this area. But of course that didn't happen because it was Joe Gomez. However, the plan from United seemed to be reasonably similar still. Because the plan was, don't let Dijk get the ball, force him across to Joe Gomez, who you then give a bit more time to on the ball. And actually, in the average positions, Joe Gomez was slightly higher than Van Dijk, and also he had more touches than anyone else on the pitch. I think about 12 higher than the next highest player for Liverpool. And that kind of highlighted the game plan from United. Let Joe Gomez step forward into these areas with the ball. What we also saw was Alexander-Arnold sometimes picking up a narrow position here, but sometimes playing wide, but Alanga was always very, very close to him. And then on the left-hand side, every time that Robson tried to push forward, Jadon Sancho was very much pinning him back. And what we can see straight away is that United are very much man-for-man in the midfield here. Fernandes on Henderson, McTominay on Elliott, and then Eriksen and Milner close by. The fullbacks are closely marked and being pushed back towards their own goal, and it made things a little bit stale for Liverpool. Now, this was probably more a personnel issue for Liverpool, with certain players out missing, because Matip normally does very well in these situations. But it meant that Liverpool were just very tame, very slow, very stale on the ball, and they didn't really know how to progress the ball through the lines like this.
I am just going to quickly interrupt because we do have another sponsor for today's video, and that is jerseyfifa.com. The website you need to head to right away to get yourself the latest and greatest football shirts, all at an extremely affordable price. The link will be in the description below, so head there right away to get yourself a great shirt, again at a great price. Now back to the video.
Now, the one pattern we did see eventually kind of happening was Roberto Firmino getting the ball in these areas, but Lisandro Martinez done an excellent job of following him into these areas and then really crunching in with the tackle. And like I keep saying, it just meant that Liverpool were really, really slow in possession. I don't know if some of that was a psychological thing. I don't know if they were expecting a bit of an easier game. I'm not too sure. That's not really for me to comment on. But what I can say is that they were far too slow on the ball, and United done an excellent job of preventing the progressive options for Joe Gomez. And obviously, as a result, this meant that Liverpool lost possession, and I thought the likes of McTominay and Eriksen in particular and especially during the first half, were absolutely brilliant at winning the ball back in these areas. And basically, the plan when they done this was to get the ball to Bruno Fernandes as quickly as possible, the player who had the most touches for United in this game, and then look to play in behind the exposed Liverpool defence. So we know that Joe Gomez was stepping forward and that Alexander-Arnold likes to play nice and high. And what it's done was left this massive space out here for Manchester United to then try and exploit. We know that Rashford, playing up front, would always want to try and exploit this space, as did Anthony Elanga. And this caused problems for Liverpool pretty much all night long. Every time United got the ball, they looked to play quick in behind. They were always playing in the transition. And the same happened down this side as well. When Van Dijk was able to play forward, so it might have been Eriksen, it might have been McTominay, would nick in, win this ball, and then set off the attack. And the warning signs were there quite early on for Liverpool. So this was still at 0-0, and Robertson has kind of tried to force the ball forward down this left-hand side, just behind me. And Scott McTominay has won the ball back. From where some two important things happen. We see Marcus Rashford drops towards the ball, and Bruno Fernandes makes a run in behind. And we can see Liverpool are incredibly exposed. Alexander-Arnold is high up the pitch, Harvey Elliott is not tucking in, and there is no Liverpool midfield player here. The area where Fabinho would normally be, or Henderson from the right-hand side would be tucking in. And with Henderson now playing in the middle rather than the right, it left massive gaps here. And Scott McTominay, to be fair, played a brilliant pass, and I thought he was really good during the game. The pass comes through, Bruno Fernandes gets there, slides in, gets the ball across to Elanga, who hits the post. But that was the early sign that when Manchester United win the ball back, they're going to look to transition quickly. However, what I thought was also important was that sometimes when they won the ball back, they didn't always rush it. Now, in the past, we have seen Bruno Fernandes playing a bit like a headless chicken. He just kind of constantly fires passes forward everywhere when it's a little bit unnecessary. But what we actually saw in this game was that there were situations when they were happy to take their time on the ball. So even if they did win the ball quickly here and quickly play a pass through, if the attack didn't happen, they didn't waste possession. They were then happy to come back and recycle the ball a little bit. And that is where the first goal came from. So this is the first goal here, and it was built up down the other side of the pitch, down the right side. United realised the attack weren't really coming to anything, so they came out, come back, and then go to Lisandro Martinez just out of picture here. And Martinez played a key role, because what he does is a very simple thing, a very simple pass, but he does it first time. If he doesn't play this pass the first time, the move doesn't happen, the goal doesn't happen. But Lisandro plays it first time to Elanga, and what this means is that the Liverpool defence is still shifting across, which leaves gaps. And we can see this gap here between Arnold and Gomez, the gap we've been speaking about already, and then the gap between Gomez and Van Dijk. And if you look, Harvey Elliott, your right-sided central midfielder, just wasn't really doing enough, and this is where I think Jurgen Klopp got it wrong. Fabinho would have done a better job here than Henderson, and Henderson would have done a better job here than Harvey Elliott, because Henderson would have been on Eriksen here. Instead, United realise that he isn't, Elanga plays the pass into Eriksen, and then it is played in this channel through here. What this does is it takes Trent Alexander-Arnold out of the game, and also half of your midfield, with a quick 1-2. And again we can see this gap between Gomez and Dijk, but also Sancho on the edge here. Fabinho, this is his area, this is where Fabinho would have operated, and either tucked in as an extra centre-back, or he would have stayed on the edge of the box and marked Sancho. That didn't happen. Elanga got there, got the ball, played it across for Sancho, who we know then sits about 13 defenders down, breaks all of their ankles, and puts the ball into the back of the net. And that was really impressive from Manchester United. It was a really good move, but I think from Liverpool it was very poor. However, Ten Hag would have been pleased with the patience in the move. And like I said, it all came from patience down the right-hand side, before Lisandro Martinez then quickly sped up the play with one forward pass. But in general, that wasn't how moves were built. More typically, it was quick transitioning football, looking to get behind Joe Gomez and looking to get behind Jordan Henderson in this gap here, because Gomez and Van Dijk just didn't seem to have a good understanding with each other, and literally from the first minute of the game they seemed a little bit hesitant and unsure in what they were doing. So that was kind of the story of the first half. United just kept getting into this area, and it came from Elanga's energy on Alexander-Arnold and Joe Gomez, and then the pure pace in behind. But I thought that United needed more goals in the first half, because they had the chances, but particularly Elanga was a little wasteful with his end product. Now in the second half we saw something slightly different, and Ten Hag made a really brave, bold decision, because Elanga had a good first half, and so did Rashford up front, but Ten Hag still changed it at half time. He moved Rashford over to the left hand side, and brought Martial on up front. And what this done was it meant that United now had a better link player up front to drop in here and get the ball, before once again then exposing this space in behind the defence down the left hand side. And this is what happened for the goal, but I do just want to say, I thought that Anthony Martial had a brilliant second half. This was his first 45 minutes of the season after injury, and he'd done a brilliant job of protecting the ball in these areas and then bringing others into the game. But again, Ten Hag deserves credit because it was this move from Rashford to the left wing, then attacking this area here, which led to the second goal. And that's what we see here. Trent Alexander-Arnold plays a bit of a hopeful ball forward. Varane headers it away. He keeps it simple, and this is what United done well at the back all night long. They weren't too keen on playing the ball out from the back. They just dealt with things defensively, got the ball away from their goal. Now Varane wins this header, and what happens is Jordan Henderson has a loose touch in the middle third here, and it breaks to Martial, who does a brilliant job of holding off the defender Virgil van Dijk. He kind of wiggles through, keeps hold of possession, and then slips a perfectly timed ball through to Marcus Rashford. Now, I'll be honest, live I thought it was offside. In the replays I thought it was offside, but I guess we just have to trust VAR here. And Martial and Rashford deserve a lot of credit if the timing was spot on, which apparently it was. So Martial does brilliantly, plays the ball through to Marcus Rashford, who then keeps his composure, takes a touch and fires it in at the near post. 2-0 to Manchester United. Now, as I was saying a minute ago, Ten Hag does deserve credit for that because it was his decision to move Rashford to the left-hand side, which got United their second goal. However, what we did see as the second half played out was why I personally didn't think Rashford should start in this position, and why we did see Elanga. And that was because, either through fatigue or something else, he wasn't particularly tracking Alexander-Arnold. And it meant that Liverpool in the second half were now able to get forward. And this is to be expected, right? When you go 2-0 up inside the 60 minutes, you've done a lot of pressing, put a lot of hard work in, you do almost naturally fall behind the ball a little bit. But at times, it allowed Liverpool to get into the game a bit too much. I thought United could have killed it, but instead Liverpool started to build momentum and they did start getting forward into these areas. But I just thought the defence was really impressive. Now, it was helped by Liverpool being poor. I don't think we should go over the top on United here. Liverpool were very poor on the ball. In the midfield, they just had no quality. And with Firmino dropping deep, the wingers were sort of playing out here. There was nothing up front to really trouble the centre-backs. What this meant was that the ball got worked wide to Diaz, who was defended absolutely brilliantly by Dalot. That was a fascinating battle throughout the game. I really liked Diaz, and Dalot done a brilliant job of stopping him. And then down the right-hand side, Malacia in his first ever Premier League minutes, or his first ever Premier League start, I should say, done a brilliant job defensively on Mohamed Salah. Now, something else that I was saying during the preview is that even if United do defend well, Liverpool will get chances and they will get into your box. And that was the case, whether it was underlapping runs in here or in here. United still defended brilliantly, and it was thanks to the mobility, agility and just the pure speed and thinking of Martinez and Rafa Varane, who both done a brilliant job of defending in these areas, snuffing out a lot of attacks. And there were a lot of situations where Liverpool would get into here, and then the two centre-backs would just kind of show their muscle, and the ball would roll out of play for a goal kick to United. And that was kind of how it went. When Liverpool did keep the ball in play and were a bit more threatening, the two centre-backs chose to just lump it clear. And I thought that was quite smart. Don't take the risk. And between them, they had 15 clearances. And I thought that they had a very good game at centre-back. And it will be hard for Harry Maguire to get back into the team. But like I said, what impressed me the most was that Liverpool were getting into these areas. And then it was just the muscle and the experience to shepherd the ball out for a goal kick. Now, from these goal kicks, we saw another really interesting tactical decision from Erik ten Hag and his players. Now, what we've been talking about in the first two games of the season against both Brighton and Brentford is Manchester United losing the ball far too much in these areas, playing short when they should have been playing the ball long. That did not happen in this game, and again something I was talking about in the preview was sending goal kicks long to the left wing, because Alexander-Arnold isn't great in the air. If you go to the right hand side, you've got Virgil van Dijk, he's going to beat your players in the air. Gomez is decent in the air, but not as good as Virgil van Dijk, and Alexander-Arnold isn't very impressive at all. So whether it's Elanga or Rashford on the left wing, they were nearly always the target with the goal kicks, and United deserve credit for this because I was talking after that Brentford game about how De Gea, but also Ten Hag, has to learn from that Brentford game that you can't always play the ball short, you can't always play out from the back. Sometimes you have to send the ball long. And I thought that we've seen already that Ten Hag learned something already in the Premier League this season. And that is the fact that sometimes you can't play your way out from the back, especially when you don't have the right personnel. And we can see that with the goal kicks. And we can see that they were targeted to the left-hand side. Here we can see De Gea attempted one, what we would call a short pass. There's then sort of this one medium range pass here, but the rest of them were long, all night long. Now, as a result, it did mean that his pass percentages were a little bit low, but at least his percentages were low with long passes. If that happens with short passes, you lose the ball in bad areas. He was hitting good areas, and we can see it was mainly the left wing. If I could draw a line down the middle of the pitch here, which I might be able to. This side here, there's about 10 different arrows across this whole half of the pitch. Here alone, there is 13. And that showed Manchester United's intent to go long to the left wing. And we can also see the passes here. aimed more towards Joe Gomez. And again, that was just a good decision from Ten Hag. He noticed a weakness in his Liverpool team and exploited it with the long ball over the top. And I thought what was good was United played to Liverpool's weaknesses and avoided their own weaknesses. So what are the weaknesses in this team? They're not very good at getting out from the back. So what do? They sent the ball long. What's another weakness? They're not great at controlling the ball in midfield. So he didn't try to. They quickly played the ball forward, constantly moving forward, playing in transition. And McTominay was a prime example of that. Now, McTominay is a player that I've given a lot of stick on this channel in the past, and at times it's been deserved. But he done really well in this game, and it was good from Ten Hag. He had just 40 touches. Joe Gomez for Liverpool had over 100. This is Manchester United's deepest midfielder, only with 40 touches on the ball and 19 passes. And this kind of showed the intent from United. There is no need to get the ball in here and dominate, because they're not very good at it. Just quickly get the ball forward and expose Liverpool's weakness, which is this right-hand side, the gap between Van Dijk and Joe Gomez, and the gap between Gomez and Alexander-Arnold, and Arnold in particular, who individually isn't a great defender. And Manchester United just exploited this all night long. 40% of their attacks came down this attacking wide third. Kind of sums it up. I thought Manchester United were absolutely brilliant. Now, to not get too carried away, I thought Liverpool were really poor at the same time. And this isn't a tactic what can be used too much going forward. This isn't Manchester United are back. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. There's players that need to be brought in and things like that. Because this tactic next week against Southampton, you can't really play in the same way. In that game, you will have to get out from the press and you will have to break a team down. However, for this particular game, United and Ten Hag and his scouts or whoever addressed a weakness in this Liverpool team and exploited it brilliantly. So credit where it's due, Manchester United played brilliantly, exposed Liverpool, and if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd be a little bit concerned because this was a really worrying performance. But for Manchester United, it was a positive night. The protest went well and peacefully from what I saw, which was important. And then on the pitch, they produced a masterclass. The defence were brilliant, the midfield done their job, and then the forwards were lethal going forward. So credit to Ten Hag, credit to Manchester United, and I hope you fans enjoyed that and enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.